All right, hello and welcome to the eVenture family channel. And if it's your first time here, please do subscribe and make sure to like this video if you find it helpful and useful, because that does help the channel out quite a bit. If you're not new here, you know that one of the things that we love the most here is going out for fun and exciting family adventures together, especially in our EVs. And some of the adventures that I was really looking forward to being able to take in the future were all going to be with us in a Volvo EX90, their brand new flagship 3-row SUV EV that has been facing numerous delays and problems. And we've been a reservation holder now for about a year on one, and we've gotten very little in the way of information. We're finding out a lot of things kind of secondhand on it. But I wanted to walk through what some of the different challenges and problems have been so far, where the delays have come from, what stuff is holding it up, and why all of this together is really leading me to a lot of second thoughts on a vehicle that I was pretty excited for and am now a lot more worried about. So as somebody whose very second car ever was a Volvo, and the car that I drove through college was a sweet Volvo 240 sedan, I was super excited to be getting back into the family. But it is now looking like that is not going to happen, and I'm just about ready to hit the button on canceling our reservation now at this point. So why don't we get into it? Let's talk through the problems of the Volvo EX90, as well as problems that Volvo is sort of facing overall right now across their line of EVs, including the EX30, which is their much smaller, more affordable EV that is shipping globally but is delayed significantly in the US now, even more than the EX90 is. And we'll get into all of that. So come along with me and let's drive. All right, so going through the timeline a little bit here on the EX90. So it first debuted worldwide in November of 2022. It later had its US debut at CES in January of 2023, and they opened up the order books right around that time. They then ended up closing them in April of 2023, I guess temporarily, because there were just so many orders that they didn't think they'd be able to keep up with the demand for it. After that, it was announced that production would be delayed to mid-2024 due to problems with integration of the LiDAR software systems and other software integration problems. So basically Volvo is licensing a bunch of LiDAR technology that's fairly cutting edge, although you start to see it in some other vehicles out there, especially like some of the other Chinese EVs are really embracing the use of LiDAR. But Volvo in particular was really interested in using this for some of the more advanced safety features and functionality that it would potentially provide. But because they're getting it from a third party, they've had issues in integrating it. They're doing most of their software for this upcoming platform in-house now, and to be honest, it seems like they are really kind of just building up the capacity for doing their own real difficult, complex in-house software development, and they are facing a lot of problems not only here in the Volvos but even in Polestar as well. The shared platform that this is being built on is called the SPA2 platform, and it is also what is being used on the Polestar 3 SUV, which has also faced a bunch of software issues and delays. So Volvo decided to delay by 6 months the production and deliveries of the EX90, and that was announced back in the beginning of the year. In June this year, they started production in South Carolina of the EX90, which is great because it's one of the fewer Volvos, at least in the EV range, that is produced in the United States, and especially now, and we'll get into this more when we talk about the EX30, but having production here in the US with the big new tariffs on Chinese-made EVs is really a huge benefit, and helps with enabling access to the federal tax incentive, and it means that they'll be able to not have these huge increases in costs because of the tariffs on Chinese-made ones, like the EX30. So the first vehicles have begun running off the line now, which is great, and They are going to start delivering later this year now. However, we just got an email from them as reservation holders that our reservation would be, it's a very positive email, basically saying that our reservation was going to be honored soon. We get more information shortly. Get ready for it and how excited you should be. Oh, and then by the way, there are a couple of features that you'll get as over-the-air updates and like basically putting that as a big benefit, that because of the capability for over-the-air updates, you'll be able to get some of the things that initially were supposed to come at launch and debatably really should come at launch, instead as over-the-air features at some point on an undisclosed timeline in the future. So numerous key missing features are going to be unavailable at launch now, which I am not at all happy about, and I'm not going to go ahead and move forward on it until those features are available, because I'm not just going to trust the promise here that they are going to get delivered in a quick timeline. All right, so going over the EX90 and just like some of the basic things about it. So this is really, the big flagship thing for Volvo. Their best-selling vehicle overall, at least in the United States, is the XC90, their big three-row, family soccer mom SUV that is, super popular around here in the suburbs. It's one that we looked at before, we decided that we were going all electric, and, it's really just been a huge thing for them. And so the EX90 is, essentially the electric companion to that, and expected to be, super popular. It's also, as opposed to the EX30, which is, really kind of like basic and embracing Scandinavian minimalism to keep the price down, the EX90 is like put every feature that they can possibly put into it, as much luxury as Volvo realistically will do, and just a ton of like safety, security, and convenience features that should all be a part of it. So this is built on this new platform. It'll have 111 kilowatt hours of battery. They haven't given range numbers yet, but with the battery that big, it should be pretty good, even though it's a pretty large, beefy vehicle. There'll be at least two trims that we know about, both twin motors. There's the entry-level twin motor trim, which will start at $77,999, which is just low enough that it should be eligible for the federal tax incentive, since it's under $80,000 and it's built in the US. Now, we're not sure yet on if it'll be eligible for the full $7,500 credit or not. Depends on how they handle like the sourcing and where the materials come from for the batteries, but there's a potential that it will be. It will, in that trim, it will deliver 402 horsepower, 568 pound-feet of torque, and go from 0 to 60 in 5.7 seconds. There'll also be a twin motor performance trim, which decreases that 0 to 60 time by a full second, taking it down to 4.7 seconds. It'll deliver 509 horsepower and 671 pound-feet of torque. All of them will come with a 360-degree camera. There are 5 radar sensors, 16 ultrasonic sensors in addition to the LiDAR. There's a 14.5-inch center screen with built-in Google Apps and Services. So again, very similar like what you already have in Polestar, where you have like full access to the Google Play Store and Google Mapping and everything like that, which is phenomenal. And deliveries are supposed to happen in the second half of 2024 now. Unfortunately though, they'll be missing a whole bunch of features, including wireless CarPlay. To me, that's a huge miss, because a lot of times I just don't like want to plug my phone in. I want to get in and instantly have the CarPlay stuff available there, especially once I've gotten it all set up and configured with my favorite apps and everything. I just want to use that all of the time in the system here. Now, I'm not one who is like this diehard CarPlay or bust kind of person, especially between us having the Tesla and the Rivian. Both of those I think are really the exceptions to the rule that show you really don't need CarPlay or Android Auto if you've got like a good in-house built entertainment system with good software. Now, that being said, like they're really the only two companies that I'm aware of that are actually like doing good software. So in pretty much everything else, I think CarPlay is almost a necessity, but at least they have proven that you don't necessarily need it. And while I'm not super familiar with like Volvo and Polestar, I have driven Polestars before, and I actually really like their implementation with the Google services in it. So I'd probably be fine with using that, but it's just nice to know that you also have CarPlay for anything that's missing from there. But you won't be able to use that, at least wirelessly, to start with. It'll also be missing bi-directional charging. This one in particular, I think it's going to be a very long time before they deliver that. I mean, you even look at like Tesla and Rivian, who have taken years to roll out the roadmap for that, and in the case of Tesla, it's only available with the Cybertruck, and you need very special hardware for it. For Rivian, they've only announced that it will be available, but details are still pretty scarce. Ford with the F-150 Lightning, and I believe Chevy are the only ones that have actually like delivered anything in addition to that yet with bi-directional charging. So I'd be very skeptical about this one, especially because it requires like additional hardware partnerships. Volvo's going to have to work with some other like charging OEM to make the hardware, and then also like set up installation and service and stuff for it. So I think that's got to be probably pretty low on their roadmap, especially in light of all of the other issues that they're facing software-wise with their EVs. It's also going to be missing a light theme for all of the displays. You're going to be stuck to the dark mode. So bizarre to me, like how, like what prioritization decision, you know, led to that? Why did you choose dark over light? And why is that even a thing that got cut versus other stuff? Was there really nothing else in the software that they couldn't delay more and like focus on that? That just seems like a critical kind of safety and usability problem to me. Just mind-boggling to me that they are going to be missing that. It'll also be missing a whole bunch of safety and convenience features, including like one of the key marquee things on here, which is this integration with the LiDAR systems. So you will not be able to use that for like any advanced autonomous driving or even like safety and convenience features at start. It'll even be missing cross-traffic alerts. I mean, which to me, like the reason you buy a Volvo is for, you know, the safety, especially like, you know, this one in particular, for having that safety with your family. This being a huge vehicle, it's going to be hard to see. And so like missing a key feature like that is just, again, a huge miss to me. And it'll also be missing curve speed assistance, which I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I think it's probably like when you're on, you know, whatever their version of autopilot is, or, you know, the radar assisted cruise control, it's not going to slow down proactively when it knows that there's a curve coming up. It'll just keep going, which again, fairly, well, debatable how dangerous that is, but still, you know, just for Volvo, it's a mind-boggling decision. To me, they should have prioritized everything that was like safety and convenience related and deprioritized some of the other stuff to get it out, or just delay the car even further at this point. And then the other crazy thing here is, so with this platform, Volvo has moved to what they've called a core computer, but I think in Volvo's case, what they're doing is they have like this centralized computer that's handling essentially all software systems so that they can like deliver individual updates to that target everything and not have to do like different firmware flashes across a whole bunch of different systems. And as a result of it, basically everything is going through this core system, and they haven't figured out exactly like how to get this set up the right way and enable different parts to function independently. So the whole thing has to be running all of the time, which what that means is the vehicle, even when it's parked and, you know, effectively off, the core computer itself is still running, and it's going to drain around 3% of your battery each day just for that. So even if the car was just sitting in your garage not being used at all, you lose 3% of the battery each day. Now after what do they say, 72, 78 hours, something like that, it will shut off completely and no longer drain beyond that. But I mean, just still, like, these are very basic things to me, and all of this together just makes me feel like they really have not figured out like software in a meaningful way at this point, and they're really kind of flying by the seat of their pants, and it just does not leave me with a lot of confidence and trust in what they're doing software wise, especially to like deliver these feature as over-the-air updates in any sort of like reasonable time frame. And by reasonable, I would say, you know, somewhere in like the 3 to 6 month range. I don't believe at all it's going to happen. I think this will probably be another year or so before the majority of these features are like actually delivered to their vehicles. And so they said most of these features will actually come as over-the-air updates, but some might actually require a in-person dealership update to do as well. This to me, this like of everything here is probably the biggest death knell of my reservation holding here. I do not ever want to have to go back to a dealership for like regular scheduled service and maintenance. It's one of the biggest benefits of moving to EVs, and especially moving to like software-defined over-the-air upgradable software in vehicles, where everything can just be delivered to you while your car's, you know, parked in your garage or in your driveway. And I don't want to have to go there for them to like flash an update. That tells me they have not figured this out, that they're still living in like legacy ways of doing software, and they're just not building toward the future. And honestly, I think it means they don't have necessarily the right like talent and leadership to move into the future of how vehicles are going to be operating. Now, of course, all of this can change. Like, there's still early days for, you know, a lot of these manufacturers, like these legacy ones especially, are struggling with this. I get it. They're not a startup like Rivian or Tesla or Lucid that is just like starting from this point and can attract that talent right away. But they need to be working on that, and just all of these things adding up together to me really have me concerned about their ability to successfully deliver this stuff long term. And I'm going to wait and see. I don't need to be a super early adopter on a legacy vehicle, if that makes sense. I'd rather be an early adopter on something like Rivian, or, you know, like I was on Tesla, and probably won't be anymore, rather than like going out there and putting all this risk on something like, Volvo's ability to successfully leapfrog and jump into the modern world here. Yeah, and then, I mean, the other big thing here is getting into the EX30. Basically, they're seeing a lot of similar issues, which, really make this more of like a trend and concerning thing, rather than just being like a one-off on this specific vehicle. So like I already mentioned with the Polestar 3 being on the same platform, they're facing software issues. So then the EX30, which was meant to be the smaller, much more affordable offering from Volvo, initially starting at a price of $35,000, has also been delayed significantly now, at least in the United States. So it was supposed to be arriving this year, but on June 26th, Volvo announced that it was going to be delayed in America until 2025, with a target date that is not yet set. And they basically said that it should launch somewhere between early and late 2025, which is hilarious because it just gives them the opportunity to launch it at any point in the year and say they met it. But there's also a chance they could move it beyond as well. So the reason for this actually has to do with the newly announced 100% tariffs on Chinese-built EVs in the United States. So in order for Volvo to get that $35,000 starting price, it was dependent on them producing these out of China and then importing them into the United States. Now, I'm not totally sure how this works, and I don't know the exact rules for it, but there is basically this offsetting program where even if you import something from like another country that has tariffs, if you're producing something of like equal value and then exporting it from the United States, it's supposed to offset a bit. So I don't really understand why that doesn't like fully come into play here, or basically what the effect is. But regardless, it seems like that's not enough. And because either Volvo would have to import these and pay 100% tariffs on it, which would be incredible and double the price of their car basically. They've instead decided to do is move production to Belgium outside of Ghent, which they're already planning to add some production there for the European market, but instead they'll be producing all of the American ones there and importing from there so that they won't be subject to tariffs. But that is going to take a significant amount of time for it to happen, which is the cause of the delay. Now, what's also unclear with this is whether or not that'll affect the price. I'm assuming that it will, is very likely that it will, because the cost to produce something in Belgium is going to be dramatically higher than production in China. So that $35,000 starting price is probably gone now, but we don't have any information on that yet. In the meantime, reservation holders of the EX30 have been offered a $2,500 loyalty incentive toward the purchase of another fully electric vehicle from Volvo, which is basically either the XC40 or the C40. It might actually apply to the EX90 once that is out as well, if it actually comes out. But in this particular case, I doubt there's a whole lot of people that were like cross-shopping the two or would be, interested in the two. The X30 is like a small two-row, very compact like SUV, whereas the EX90 is a much more expensive, luxurious three-row family SUV. So there probably is not a lot of overlap between, people wanting the two of those. But you never know. Now, in the meantime, though, in addition to this delay in the United States, the EX30 rollout has actually been seeing some software issues as well. So in the UK in particular, there have been reports of software issues with blank screens, steering wheel buttons not working fully, charging attempts failing, the emergency braking activating for seemingly no reason, and all of those are obviously very problematic. And the root cause of it seems to be, again, this shift in particular in the EX30, where everything moved into this like software controlled screen in the center, as opposed to like the buttons and controls that Volvos have previously had. And because of that, there's just so many things that have changed that they've been facing these issues, at least in some of their vehicles. And so these customers have actually been requesting refunds and getting full ones back from Volvo. But it just goes to show again, like Volvo is, struggling with software across a bunch of their lineup right now. Now, despite all of this, the EX30 is still Volvo's best-selling EV globally, and that is even despite some an early recall that they had where the speedometer went into like a test mode, but that was fixed with an over-the-air upgrade. So at least that shows that they have, at least in one occasion, shown the ability to deliver software updates over the air and address issues like this. But I'm not holding my breath on them addressing all of these other things on the EX90. So yeah, altogether, I'm pretty disappointed about this. I am a huge Volvo fan. So like I said in the beginning, I had a Volvo 240 as my very second car My very first one was a Chevy Cavalier that got totaled through no fault of my own pretty early on into like my car owning and driving experience. I think it was about 3 to 6 months on. And then because of how traumatic that was, I wanted something much more safe and like reliable. And so I got the Volvo, and I ended up driving that for several years in college and absolutely loved it. It always just felt like such a tank. It was, you know, so safe feeling, and I just absolutely loved it. It had like a, you know, cool vibe despite it not being an especially like cool or trendy or even, you know, performance oriented vehicle. It's just something different and fun and unique, and I loved it. And so I've always wanted to go back to a Volvo. Haven't had another one in the meantime, and I was so excited about, you know, Volvo moving to electric vehicles, especially, you know, with this message that they've been giving about, you know, really embracing the future in terms of both, you know, software and having sustainability. Both EX30 and EX90, you know, have touted all of these like cool recycled sustainable materials and stuff on the inside also. So, you know, it's meant to be like an end-to-end more sustainable product, not just in terms of the electrification, but like everything in the package, all encompassing. And it's just, you know, sad now that I feel like they're really kind of missing the mark on a lot of this. The software in particular just seems like, you know, they're doing their best, but they are not there, and it's going to take a while to get to. So what it means for me is, you know, I'm not necessarily going to cancel my reservation right now. It's still fully refundable. It was $500, I believe, and so yeah, I'd love to have that money back, but I also would love to see where Volvo gets with this, and you know, I'm willing to give them some time. I, however, will definitely not be taking hold of our order, you know, right as soon as it's available, especially with all of these missing features. So until they show that they can reliably and consistently deliver software's over-the-air upgrades without issues and bring, you know, at least the majority of these features into the vehicle. So in particular, like the wireless CarPlay, the light mode, if they can't get those things out, cross-traffic alert, in a pretty quick time frame, that tells me, you know, that they're still not there. The LiDAR stuff's another thing. I would probably wait until they have that working, just because it's such a like key flagship feature on it, but I could also see that being a bit more difficult. So, you know, to me, I would love to see them get out like, you know, 1 or 2 quick upgrades very quickly that bring some of those smaller features, and then maybe a bigger one in, you know, 3 to 6 months after that brings LiDAR stuff. I don't care that much about like the bi-directional charging, whether or not that ever comes. I don't care a whole lot. I would love to get it, but I don't want to have to buy, you know, one specifically for our Rivian, one potentially for our Tesla, and then, you know, move to another one when Volvo eventually gets it. I'd rather kind of wait for some like standardization, unification around that technology first anyway. So I'm okay waiting on that one. But I want to see at least that Volvo can deliver, you know, 3, 4, something like that, reliable updates that bring not only bug fixes, but also new like features and stuff like Tesla and Rivian have been doing, to really have confidence in it before I, you know, pull the trigger on buying it. And in the meantime, let's see, you know, I think it's going to take them long enough that the R2 might be either pretty close or already delivering at that point. And just because of the consistency and the trust that I have in them, I would much rather go with Rivian at this point. So that's my story so far. Let me know down in the comments below. Are you a reservation holder on any of Volvo's upcoming EVs? Is it something that you've been keeping an eye on at least? I think the EX30 in particular was, you know, such an exciting thing. Like, we're finally getting, you know, another like really nice low cost, not low cost, but affordable EV that I think would work great for a lot of people and not a lot of compromises with. But unfortunately, we're not getting it for right now. So let me know how you feel about that. If you're another EX90 holder, let me know how you're feeling about, you know, taking order of it when it is available at this point. Are you going to wait and see also, or these things not matter to you and you trust that Volvo will, you know, be able to deliver a good delivery experience right when it's ready? With that, thank you so much for watching, and please do like and subscribe if you haven't already. And with that, we'll see you out there for another electric adventure soon.